So my name is Guy Charles Fanneau, Horie, and I am the CEO of Neovacs, and we are based in Paris.
Before we get into the drug testing, especially for lupus, which we're going to focus our interview on today, tell me a little bit about yourself. You have a long history in the biotech field. What led you to this field?
I've been working in the field of biotech for more than 15 years now, so which means that I am kind of a veteran of the biotech technology in France. I started working for American biotech companies like Schering-Plough and Biogen. And then I moved to French biotech companies. And at the beginning of my career in that field, I was more a sales and marketing guy. And then moving into upper management position, I had to refocus my interest to science. Since by training, I am a veterinarian, so I have some scientific background.
Oh, that's fascinating. Now, your company's latest lupus trials have been very promising. Let's start, before we get into what the trials actually showed you, let's start by exploring lupus. Do we first of all know what causes it yet?
Well, lupus is not a very well-known disease. That's the least you can say. Actually, the real cause of lupus is not well-known, and the physiopathology of the disease is barely known. It is well known, for example, now that alpha interferon plays a major role in the disease, but lupus is a disease which needs a lot of research still.
I understand that 1.5 million people in America, anyway, have lupus. I suppose I keep reading that we do know a few things, it seems, about those with lupus. For example, more women seem to get it than men, and there could also be a genetic component.
Yes, indeed. It is a disease which is very predominant amongst women. 9 patients out of 10 are women. And it is diagnosed in young women between the ages of 15 and 40 years of age. The epidemiology is not very well known. The Lupus Foundation of America says that there are 1.5 million patients in the U.S., and figures in Europe are not so well known. There is certainly a background of genetic predisposition, but there are other factors like viral infections which also play a role.
Oh, that's interesting. Why do you believe lupus has been so hard to treat?
Well, first of all, it is a disease which hits many different parts of the body. There are there may be skin lesions, there may be joint lesions, there may be lesions at the level of the central nervous system. So it is a very heterogeneous disease, and the evolution of this disease is unpredictable. So this means that it's been very difficult to treat because doctors never know which organ is going to be hit by the disease during the next flare. So it's been difficult to diagnose and then difficult to follow, and there is no predictive signal of the evolution of the disease. So that makes it a very difficult disease to apprehend.
So what has your research and the trials, what have they found? Have you found something that seems to help?
We believe so because it is very, as I mentioned earlier, alpha interferon plays a major role in the disease. It's well known that in patients with very active disease, the levels of alpha interferon are going to be much higher than in healthy people. So what we have shown with our compound is that we decrease in a very significant manner the level of expression of the genes which are related to alpha interferon. So this is a very strong signal that we will be able to decrease the activity in the disease, and this has been confirmed by observations as well of another biomarker. So in lupus patients, when they are doing very poorly, the level of a protein which is called the C3 complement are very decreased. What we saw in our trial is that patients who respond to the study, to the drug, have levels of C3 complements which go up to almost normal levels. So we have shown in this study that 2 very critical biomarkers of the disease are very well regulated by the administration of our product, and they come back almost to normal levels.
That's fantastic. Now, how would this drug be administered?
So this is a drug which works in a similar manner as a vaccine. Therefore, as most vaccines, it is given with a shot, so it's an intramuscular administration. And we are still in the process of really defining the treatment scheme. What we know is that the activity of our drug is quite low, which means that the treatment could consist of one IM shot every 3 to 4 months, meaning 3 to 4 injections a year.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, what are you? What comes next in your testing procedures?
So this the study we reported the results of at this very well-known Congress of the ACR in Chicago 2 weeks ago have been very well received by the scientific and medical communities. So now the next step for us is to do what is called a phase 2 study, which is going to be a clinical efficacy study on a large number of patients, i.e. between 1 and 200, over the course of 1 year at least for all the patients. And at the end of this study, what we will have demonstrated, hopefully, is that the drug is active clinically. What we have shown so far is that the drug is safe and that it works on biomarkers. Now we need to demonstrate clinical efficacy, and this is the study we will initiate within the next 6 months.
That's very exciting. When, if everything goes well, when do we expect it to come to market?
So lupus is a disease which is still considered as a very high unmet medical need. There has been only one new drug over the past 50 years, so there are many patients who desperately need the new treatments, which means that the health authorities might be able to give authorizations to commercialize products in a shorter way than with drugs in other disease. So we believe that by end of 2014 or by year 2015, the drug could be on the market.
Oh, that's remarkable. That's terrific. I also noticed you had other trials for Crohn's and rheumatoid arthritis. Is there some sort of common denominator between or among Crohn's, RA, and lupus, or are they entirely different diseases?
So the answer would be both. I mean, these are very different diseases. Crohn's disease is a disease of the digestive tract.
Yes.
Rheumatoid arthritis is a disease of the joints, and lupus is a disease of the whole organism. So they are very different in that sense. However, they have a common trait, which is that it is well known that at least one protein plays a major role in this disease. So for Crohn's disease and rheumatoid arthritis, this protein has been identified, and it is TNF, tumor necrosis factor, and in the case of lupus, it is, as I mentioned earlier, alpha interferon. So the common trait for all these diseases is that these are autoimmune diseases. The body attacks itself. There is a dysregulation of the immune system. And the second common trait is that there has been a well-identified protein which plays a major role in the disease.
So what is ahead for your company, Neovacs? You are, of course, going to proceed with further trials on these diseases and with your drugs, but this must be a very exciting time to be involved in this field.
It is indeed, and we have currently 2 phase 2 studies running in Crohn's disease and rheumatoid arthritis. We will have the final data in the study in rheumatoid arthritis by the end of this year, by mid-December. We have already announced preliminary data which are very promising. For the Crohn's disease, we will have the data by March or April of next year, which means that by March or April, we will know exactly what the level of clinical efficacy of our drug in these diseases, and then the next step will be to launch very large-scale studies. And in the case of lupus, we will launch within the next 6 months a larger scale study to demonstrate the clinical efficacy of our drug in this disease. So now we are at a kind of moment where we will turn from a company with very promising data in small clinical studies into a company with very large-scale clinical studies trying to demonstrate the clinical efficacy and the clinical relevance of our approach in patients with very, very severe disease.
You know, you live with this day in and day out, but I can imagine that people with lupus, for example, I mean, this constitutes the greatest amount of hope that they've had in years and in decades. And it's just incredible that your company is responsible for this. It must be very gratifying and very satisfying.
It is indeed. The approach which is being developed by Neovacs is a very innovative approach whereby we do ask the immune system of the patient to treat the patient. So, it's a self-treating process thanks to the product which we do administer to the patients. And to be able to come up with very good data in very severe disease like lupus is indeed very gratifying. In the case of lupus, as I mentioned, there is a very high unmet medical need. Many patients are very anxious about new products coming onto the market. We are at the forefront of the clinical research with our product, and we believe that we can help many patients in the very near future.
If I could go back just for a moment, what did you see in these patients who went through the lupus trials? How was their body changed? How did they come out of these trials?
So the study is this study was a study which is called the First in Man. That was the first time we were administering our product to a human being. Of course, it had been tested very extensively in animals before. So the main purpose of this study was to demonstrate first the safety of the product, second the fact that you could see it working in the body of the patient via the follow-up of biomarkers, and third, we were looking at some clinical parameters. So what we have seen is that the product is very safe. Second, we have seen very strong indication of very strong activity on biomarkers. As I mentioned to you, the gene expression has been regulated, and the level of C3 protein has been upregulated. In terms of clinical signs, some patients have reported that they were doing really well. However, this study was not a clinical efficacy study. Therefore, we were not trying to demonstrate a strong clinical efficacy. We have been working on only on a small cohort of patients, 28 patients. So we have seen encouraging data in terms of clinical efficacy. People seem to be doing better. However, this will not qualify as the demonstration of clinical efficacy.
I understand, but still, must make you feel pretty good.
Indeed. We're very happy, and the doctors we are working with are very enthusiastic as well.
Now, if I asked you a lot and you were fantastic, is there anything that you want to tell me that I didn't ask you about or that you would want to go into further?
Well, maybe just the point about the way our drugs work in in patients.
Please.
So, when our drugs could be qualified as a therapeutic vaccines, which means that the drug by itself has no activity on the disease, but it triggers the appearance of antibodies which will treat the disease. So it's a kind of indirect activity. And what's really exciting about this approach is that we ask the immune system of the patient to treat the patient's condition. So this is a very, very innovative way of working, of treating autoimmune disease, and it's very similar to what vaccines are trying to do.
Will this lead to a cure per se? Or will an individual still be living with the disease, but able to go about their business as a normal person without the disease would?
So in the disease for which we have the largest set of clinical data,
yes,
what we see is that people, when they do respond to the treatment, do really much better. And in the Crohn's disease trial, we have seen that 50% of the patients went into remission. Remission means that they could live a life which was absolutely normal, and they had no more clinical signs. And this clinical remission seems to be sustained over time. We have had people who have been in remission for more than 18 months now. So it is a bit early to really respond to your question, but what we have seen so far is that people are doing really much better, coming back to a normal life, and this clinical benefit, this remission, seems to be sustained.
Well, fabulous. Guy Charles, you were very thorough and terrific. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you'll come back again in a couple of years or whenever you have more to report and we can do this again.
Thank you very much, Pat, and I hope to come back with even better news in the near future.
Excellent. All right. Well, you have a great day, and thanks again.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.